I'm joined here today by the one, the only, of course, talking about Josh Culibao coming off the big decision victory back in May. What's going on, sir? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Just happy to be back home, out of the 2 week quarantine, and yeah, back to the normal routine.
What was that trip like for you to get back home? Because for a lot of fighters in America, we hear like, oh, we have a long flight to Vegas, but for guys, Australia, New Zealand, and stuff, it sounds like you guys got some hoops to jump through.
Yeah, it's so much so it's not only the flight back, but also the 2 weeks quarantine that we guys got to do. So yeah, that always takes away from the fight because you're on such a massive high from the fight, and then for your high to just die down while you're in a hotel room for 2 weeks. So yeah, kind of is a bit of a buzzkill.
So, what does quarantine look like for you? I assume they put you in this special hotel. Do you have your coaches or anything? Or are you all by yourself and you're just sitting there for 2 weeks?
So the last time I went to Fight Island, they put us all together in one hotel room. Um, but then this time around, they actually split us all up and had us all in separate
Wow.
rooms. Yeah, it was a bit full on, doing 2 weeks by yourself. So yeah.
So what are you doing there during this time? Like, you're one of those guys. Like, do you pack the PlayStation? Do you have stuff to do? I assume you rewatch your masterpiece, but like, what do you do during those 2 weeks?
And there's only so much PlayStation, and there's only so much scrolling and social media you can do before you start going crazy. So I tried to train, and then I was training like twice a day, once in the morning, once in the night. But then yeah, you sort of also lose routine as well, and then you end up just ordering Uber Eats and whatnot. So yeah.
Well, I assume for you the good thing though is you get to celebrate. You're coming off of this victory, you get to let loose a little bit with the diet. But I assume 2 weeks, 2 weeks of not being careful though, you're gonna pay for it when you get back in the
Yeah,
gym.
100%, 100%. That's what I mean. I had to somewhat sort of training in there, and yeah, be mindful of kind of what I was eating.
So what do you guys do? Do you guys think about like a game plan of maybe staying in the United States a little bit longer in case there's short notice fights since you do have the quarantine and stuff? Are you guys thinking of stuff like that at all before leaving?
I actually thought about that, staying in Vegas, but it's sort of tough on my coaches because they're away from their family. My coaches, they have kids and stuff, so it's sort of taking them away. They're already away for close to 3 weeks away from their family because of the 2 weeks quarantine. So it's kind of, yeah, it's a bit unfair on my coaches on in that aspect where, yeah, it's just a bit unfair for them to be away from their family for so long. Fair enough if it's me by myself, my partner will understand that I this is my job, but for my coaches, it's kind of, yeah, a bit too much to ask for them.
It makes a lot of sense because a lot of people they always picture the fighter, but it's like the whole time you guys have people traveling with you and coaches that I'm sure have different guys they work with also, and like they do this for you. So I'm sure it does mean a lot when they are willing to make that big trip and the sacrifice with you.
Exactly.
So I assume coming off of a victory makes quarantine a little bit sweeter. Like I assume if you'd been coming off a big loss, like 2 weeks of sulking in it, that would have been a
Yeah,
tough one.
yeah, definitely would have been involving a lot of eating to make myself feel better. But yeah, it's tough. If I could only just imagine sitting in a room just dwelling on that all the little mistakes that you made in the fight. If you did lose, so yeah, it would suck for sure.
All right, let's talk about your fight a little bit. You're coming off of the unanimous decision victory. How do you look back on your performance in that fight?
It was a good performance. A very I feel a very disciplined performance where I sort of stuck to the game plan and never really um, you know went off path and tried to do something else. So I think it was a very disciplined performance. We stuck to the game plan and yeah, got the job done. If I was being very critical, I would have liked to get the stoppage. I feel like if I did put a bit more pressure, um, you know, like kind of forced and been a little bit more aggressive, I feel like I could have got him out there. But I think it was just good to just get the octagon time and yeah, just play it safe and finally get that first W in the UFC. So
So the fight before you're coming off a draw. How does it feel when you go into your next fight? Because you're not coming off a win, but you're not coming off of a loss either. Like what's kind of the mentality as you head into that one?
I felt like I took a loss in that one because it's yeah the draw I just it was like a massive lesson. It's like as if I did lose, so it was a massive lesson that I couldn't leave it in the hands of the judges, and if I did, it has to be completely dominant. So yeah, it was a bit funny with my mindset going into that fight because yeah, these judges you just never really know how they're scoring the fight and whatnot. So yeah, going out there, I knew it had to be a complete dominant performance, and if not a dominant performance, a finish. So that was more so the mindset going into this fight.
So the big thing is that was your first victory in the UFC. How did that feel? Like a lot of fighters for them getting to UFC is a big deal, but then getting that hand raised in the UFC for the first time must have been a really good feeling.
Man, it's huge. It's huge. Man, it's something that I actually thought about back when I was 15, 16 years old when I first started doing this sport. When I first, watched it on the television, I was like, man, I really would like to do that sport. And then I started training and then, obviously got the aspirations to become, you know, to get into the UFC. So for it to finally play out the way it did, it was, always one of those moments that you'll always keep.
At what moment does it kind of sink in? Like, this is it. Like one of my big goals, get to UFC, get the victory. Like it happens. Because for a lot of guys, it seems like it takes some time. How long did it kind of take for you?
Um, to be honest, it still doesn't. It still doesn't. I still don't think it has fully sunk it in yet. Like this, to me, it just seems all crazy. Even just this is my third fight now in the UFC, and it's to me, it still seems crazy that I'm even in the UFC fighting for the UFC. So I don't know. It just to me, when I go out there, it's just another fight. But yeah, like then I look back and then see that it is for the UFC, and it's like, yeah, it just doesn't. I don't think it will really sink in. I don't know when it will sink in, but it just hasn't sunk. I don't think it has fully sunk in yet that I'm living out my dream right now. So yeah.
Well, what's the reaction when you get back home from your friends or family and everything? I'm sure social media blew up, but what was sort of the reaction from your people, your close ones?
um, yeah, it was huge for them, because they obviously know how much work I put in, how many years I've chased this dream and to finally, get to the UFC and then finally get a win in the UFC. It was a very a proud moment for them, and it's something that really I really take to heart is when I see that I'm making, my brothers, my family proud, my partner proud, all my close friends and my coaches. So it's something that like, yeah, I hold very dear to me, being able to make them proud. So
So the big thing people talk about is, the social media numbers after you're coming off a big fight. But first victory in the UFC, I assume when you log back into social media, things must have been pretty crazy for you, even just the followers jumping up and everything.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, to be honest, I've always never really cared too much about followers or whatnot. I've just always on social media. I was always just posting for the sake of for me to be able to look back on stuff and be able to you know recollect the memories of whatever was happening at the time. So it was never so much about getting the fame or like it was always just about something for me to look back on and just have those memories. It was good.
So with the quarantine, the travel, everything's a little bit tricky to get your next fight. What does that do for you when you think about when you want to fight next? Like that, even with your coaches and stuff, it must make it tough to sort of have an idea when you want to come back.
Yeah, so yeah, we already well while we were in quarantine, obviously because we got time, we straight away started to game plan and figure out what was next for us. And you know, I, to be honest, the next thing I'd really want to be on is Alex Volkanovski, Brian Ortega fight card. So I think that would be awesome to be on a card with our champion, and hopefully get other local Australian or New Zealand fighters on that card as well. So that's what I was thinking. If not, if the UFC do finally decide to come back to Australia, New Zealand, I think that would be the best as well. So either or.
How has it been for you mentioning the Australian champion, seeing the rise of like New Zealand as well as Australia, because these nations kind of get put together a little bit with the UFC, but seeing like it seems like that's growing a lot, even just especially in the UFC with the new champions and stuff like that. How does it feel for you when you watch that kind of rise now?
it's 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 awesome to be able to see that sort of stuff. Like, I don't know, when I was there was like some sort of, I don't know how you, like some sort of like, I wouldn't know what you'd call it, but everyone thought that to succeed in the UFC, you have to be either from like training in Brazil or training in America. And now that we, from outside of the world, we finally have champions. It just goes to show we don't need to have these mega camps where we have to go to you know um, Jackson Wink, or we have to go to Australia, American Top Team, or all these big American gyms that have all these UFC fighters. Is that we can still produce successful UFC fighters right here at home. So it's seeing that sort of stuff just reinforce that in my mind even more, that we don't need to travel to Thailand, or we don't need to travel anywhere else when we can just create exactly the same success that these other mega gyms are creating. So
All right, so I have one last question for you. I always end on this question for the people that just came off of a victory. So you had some time to game plan, but realistically, who do you want to fight next?
man, so just after the weekend, the Israel Adesanya Marvin Vettori card, there was someone I was calling out for a while, which was Chase Hooper. But after watching his performance, it wasn't something that I would want to fight now, after him losing and sort of, yeah, just not looking the way he normally looked, I guess. Yeah, I don't think I would want to fight Chase Hooper now. Maybe we'll fight the guy that Chase Hooper just lost to. So that would be a good fight. And another fight, like I said before, which I think is eventually going to happen, is that rematch with Charles Jourdain, because it was such a controversial decision, and he thinks he won, I think I won. So it's sort of one of those things that I feel like maybe down the line we will fight. If not next one, we will fight. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's next. But other than that, I don't know. To be honest, yeah, I don't know who else would be next.
Hey, those are two pretty good matchups. I'm thinking about both of them. Like those will make excellent fights. So hopefully you get one of the two or both at some point. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for the time, man. I appreciate it, and congratulations on the victory, man. And getting the first in the UFC, that's a big one.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you for having me on, bro. Honestly, thank you.